Richard Grant. Only thing I seen was his head. It was just his face, nothing else. And I threw the punch. After I hit his face, everything came back to me. You know, all the reality came back, and I seen all the chaos and the people, you know, yelling at me, and you know.
Those are the words and video of James Butler. James the Harlem Butler. You know, James Butler was famous for two very heinous things. He sucker punched Richard the Alien Grant back in 2001. I'll never forget the day. He hit him when Richard Grant went over. Well, he really didn't go over. He came over to, in fact, congratulate him, like, hey, good fight or whatnot. This was James Butler's second loss to Grant. And let's just go back and reflect. Okay. James Butler, okay, he was from the streets. He had single parent home, one of those situations. His mom was out partying when, she used to leave him alone with his brother. Those type of things took place with him, born December 18th, 1972. He will be 49. He's up there with The Rock and those guys, right? That are damn near 50, but not quite. He has a record of 20 wins, 5 losses, and 12 by KO. He packed a good punch. He was a type of puncher that he likes to decapitate you, but he was wild. He swinged wild, but that meant that he would commit to every punch that he would throw, because every punch that he threw had bad intentions on it, no doubt about it. The 12 knockouts, they were brutal. If you've seen some of this guy's work, you can tell it looked like he was fighting more than the fighter in there, okay? James Butler. When he hit Richard Grant, I just thought to myself, like, yo, that is some dirty shit. But, okay, let me explain, not justify, okay? So please don't think this is me justifying the man's actions, okay? And this is one of the first things. I haven't even got to the second. But he lost. Understand something about James. He lost a unanimous decision, and he lost that to Richard Grant. That was his first loss ever. He had won 2 fights, and he stepped up in competition, so to speak, or he really stepped up to a guy with a style that gave him problems. Everyone has that puzzle piece. Everyone has that fighter with that style that will give you fits, okay? Richard Grant was that guy, okay? Now, Richard Grant wasn't anything special, honestly. He wasn't. He had a journeyman's record. His record is 36 fights, 19 wins, 15 losses, 5 wins by KO, 1 draw, 1 no contest. Okay, so yes, he did not have, in fact, if you looked at, I would rather have 5 losses than 15. But I would definitely rather be Richard than James. Definitely. But he goes on to win 13 straight wins. All right. He wins those wins, and he loses to Steven Odke, which he was sick at the time, and he come up short. All right, but he then went to take on Richard Grant. Richard Grant again, and Richard Grant showed him why his style of Richard's was so challenging, because he did the exact same thing again. Okay, now the fight itself. He boxed, he moved, Richard Grant did, okay? He knew, because, again, James the Harlem Butler had to be set to punch. The guy swings wild because he swings off balance, basically, because he's committing to every punch. Every punch that the man throws, it has heavy shit behind it. And the reason for that is because he's trying to knock your head off. Okay, again, he's trying to hit you in every punch to hurt you. And then throughout the duration of this fight, Richard Grant did the boxer's credo. Okay, he boxed, he moved, and then when in doubt, he grabbed. Okay, he put a, he was holding. You tie him up. That's what he did, and you can see the frustration round after round after round, and that was a very long fight for James the Harlem Hammer. Okay, it was a very long fight. Now, you could argue that the referee, I think his name was Ortega, referee Ortega. You could argue that he could have taken a point away earlier. He didn't take a point away from Grant. But Grant boxed, he moved, and then when he was in trouble, he tied him up. Now, that frustrated James. You could tell it frustrated him round after round after round after round. And at the very last round, the very last one, the ref said, hey, you keep holding, I'm going to take a point. And by that time, it was too late. By that time, Richard Grant had unanimously beat James. Okay? Now, seconds before, maybe 6 seconds left, James hit him, I think, with a scraping left hook that snapped the head of Richard Grant back. And I think that was one of the things that triggered him. And when you hit someone and you've been fighting and swinging, and then you punch someone finally with that punch that you were looking for rounds ago, and you finally get it, and then the guy ties you up again, instinctively, ties you up again, and then the bell rings. Okay, and he lost on all 3 scorecards, all of them. And as he was explaining, he said he didn't see anything. He didn't see the crowd. He didn't hear. He just saw him and Mr. Grant. And when Grant came near him, he punched him. Now, I think it's more to it than that. I think, honestly, he kind of gestured to shake his hand and then nailed him. You know what I mean? Because, look, Richard didn't see it coming. He didn't think that dude was going to punch him. He thought that was the last thing he was going to do. And he nailed him. Boom! He hit him. And as you guys can see, the blood oozed all out of his mouth. You can tell he was totally knocked out. He knocked him out cold with one of the dirtiest ass punches that you could ever punch a guy with. It was bad. And I remember at the time I was like, dude, that shit ain't right. And because ESPN was my channel. ESPN 2, Friday night fights, before that Thursday night fights, but all of them. I love Friday night fights. So I think that a lot of those fights like that were historic, and it made history. And it's not the type of history that you want to be known for. Okay, it was something that made him utterly infamous. And as he explained when he got out from that, he had problems getting fights. Now, to counterpunch James, it doesn't matter, and you could surely see that his thing is he should have learned some type of discipline. Boxing wasn't enough. And for someone to really have that type of mindset, he only seen him and me. Look, then when you hit him, it came back. Well, I think that's some type of psychological, mental problems. But you have to remember, this is 2001. So mental health, like normal people, sports, you know what I mean? They didn't have that again. That shit didn't even really get diagnosed really until later on with boxing, or mental health. Mental health now is a really big deal because they are noticing and acknowledging people that have it. James Butler had something wrong with him. Bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, something was up with him because he spazzed out. Okay. Now he meant to hit him. He meant to hit him because he was so pissed off. He did. You saw he had that fist raised when he saw him. I'm gonna nail this motherfucker. And he hit him. That's what he did. That's what he wanted to do. That's something that he wanted to do throughout the fight, and it overlapped into past the fight. This was not a punch after the bell. Not at all. Okay. Now, I'm listening to James Hammer Butler. James the Hammer Butler. And this is what he said. Let's see.
Me a lot. The fight with Svenaki, that hurt me a lot. The World Trade Center, I have friends that have hit people, and nothing like this ever occurs, like where someone goes to jail, especially like a boxer against a boxer. I can understand, if it was a civilian, someone that had no skills or knowledge of boxing on the street, and I hit them. I mean, that's something you go away for, you know what I mean? But someone that, that has the same skills as you, like when Tyson hit Miss Blood Green in the streets. Why he didn't go to jail?
Okay, now, obviously, if you look at James Butler, you see he's calm, you see he's answering, you see he is in justifiable mode, okay? And he was like, hey, I can understand if it was a civilian I hit and you go to jail, but this guy knew what he was doing. This guy was a fighter too. Why didn't Mike go when he hit Mitch Blood Green? To counterpunch James the Harlem Butler. The reason why Mike Tyson didn't go to jail, James, was because Mitch Green was talking shit at him and attacked him, and he defended himself. He didn't walk up to Mitch Green and fucking just hit him. Okay? Mitch Green got in his shit. And when someone approaches you in a hostile manner, you have the right to defend yourself. That's law. That's not assault. That's self-defense. Okay? That's not aggravated battery or anything. Aggravated battery when you hit him with something. You had a fucking hammer and your hammer was fist punching a guy that was totally unarmed at the time. So I don't know where the fuck he gets off with, why didn't Mike Tyson go to jail? I can understand if I hit a civilian. You might as well hit a civilian because any guy, any matter of fact, at least the civilian would have seen an angry black man coming at him with his fucking fist up. Not somebody that you went to war with for 10 rounds and thinking that this was a legit bout in a professional setting, and he was trying to show good sportsmanship by hugging you and embracing you, and you fucking nailed him. So how can you sit there and say, well, why didn't Tyson go to jail? Tyson and Mitch Green weren't friends. And this was before they fought. Okay? That was some other shit. He shouldn't have been fucking with Mike. He was verbally attacking Mike, talking shit at him. Okay, so that's what it was. Now again, you want to give someone like James Butler, okay, the benefit of the doubt. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But hearing him say this, I'm not convinced. I think it was malicious. I think that it was one of those things that he thought about before he did it. Now call it what it is. Now maybe the bipolar disorder, because I don't know. I mean, I don't have those problems. I'm not a doctor either. But I know what intention means. You had an intent to do that, right? Premeditated. I'm going to knock this motherfucker out. That's what I saw. I'm going to knock this motherfucker out. I couldn't hit him. I'm going to catch this dude this time. That's what I thought years ago. Okay? 20 years ago, I thought exactly that. You know what? He hit him because he couldn't punch him that fight and he wanted to knock him out. That's why he almost had him. And when you almost want something, you do it anyway. It was a bad, piss poor decision that he did. And I know that a boxer can be a fucking pain in the ass when it comes to trying to fight someone that boxes and moves. Okay, that they can be annoying, a hassle. But it is what it is. You know, his thing was, hey, I want to knock him out with one punch. And he was so focused on hurting the person, he wasn't thinking about a game plan to actually hit the person, to hurt the person. He skipped over 2 or 3 steps trying to knock this guy out, and it wasn't working. It didn't work when he fought him the first time. It didn't work after that, the second fight. So, yes, I think this is a situation of insanity on his part because he was unable to learn certain things. I think whoever was training him should have let him go to some other a trainer that can train him how to punch while moving or work on his skill set, because he was sloppy in there. But I mean, if he hit you, he could knock you out. But his punches, again, had everything on it. But he had limited ability. So someone that had 8 losses at the time, like Richard Grant, could go in there and bit, 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 because he's been in there before. And it shows that James the Hammer Butler didn't learn anything from his first loss to his third loss, which was the second loss that Richard Grant gave him. You know, so he didn't learn anything. And because he didn't learn anything, he was focused on what he knew. And what he knew wasn't good enough. Okay? But this completes the first volume of James the Harlem Butler and the assault, okay, from a sucker punch. You guys tell me what you think. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.